in a Bath house in County Carlow. The course took place over the February midterm break and was dedicated to writing for young people. One of my strongest memories from that week is hearing Megan read her work aloud. Early on, I thought to myself, this woman is good. But by the end of the week, when she read a piece about a girl in crisis, I was blown away, not just by the story, but by the way she had taken the tutor's advice on board and brought her writing to another level. It was clear even then that Megan had something special. Since then, I've had the privilege of getting to know Megan as a writer, a teacher, a dog lover, and a thoroughly lovely human being. She is the ideal writing buddy, someone who will read your work and give you feedback that is both honest and encouraging. She has that rare gift of being sensitive, yet real, pointing you forward without knocking you back. I was delighted to be at the launch of the house on Hawthorne Road, here in this very venue, in 2019. And during lockdown, I joined Megan online for an interview in one of her creative writing classes, another chance to see her in her element. I was thrilled to be invited to a writing retreat she organised at the River Mill in County Down 3 years ago, which is when I first heard of Gwen Taylor, the main character of our story. And I think it's a lovely piece of serendipity that we are here in Ardgillan Castle, which was once home to a family whose name was Taylor. What I admire most about Megan is her imagination. I lean heavily on history to inspire my stories, but Megan has the ability to conjure up whole worlds straight from her own head. It's a gift, and it's what makes her such an extraordinary storyteller, and that imagination is at the heart of her new book, The Mystery of Loughmoe Abbey. One of the themes of the story is the pain and the wonder of new beginnings. We meet Gwen, who moves from being an only child, homeschooled with a very laid-back approach, to suddenly being thrust into the communal setting of a girls' boarding school. The school itself feels even more expansive with the international mix of students from America, France, Kenya, and beyond. Megan captures Gwen's upheaval brilliantly. Gwen is on the outside of it all at first. She doesn't know the rules, the shorthand language the girls use, the timetable, or even which books to bring to class. That sense of being lost, particularly on your first day in secondary school, is so relatable. And Megan even manages to convey the incomparable pain of long division. But amidst the chaos, Gwen begins to find friends in the most unexpected places. Of course, she has her beloved dog Bella for comfort as she slowly begins to find her footing. What makes the book particularly captivating, though, is how Megan builds the world of the school itself. This isn't just any school. It sits on an ancient monastic site where the spiritual energy of the monks who once lived there still lingers. Having been educated in a very traditional Catholic setting, I love this imaginative and alternative take on monastic life. Now I won't spoil the mysterious dimensions and happenings that unfold there. You'll have to read the book to discover them for yourself. But I will say this, they'll keep you turning the pages well into the night. I also want to commend Megan for the way she weaves real-life challenges into the story. She touches on mental illness with a light, deft hand, never overwhelming and always respectful. And she highlights the fact that children learn differently, that one size never fits all. It's no surprise to me that The Mystery of Loughmoe Abbey has been deservedly included in Children's Books Ireland Best Books of 2025. I'm suffering from writer envy now, because you have to be really in a special category to be included in this. So it's marvellous and deservedly in there among the pages. Yes, it is a beautiful and compelling story, and one I would warmly recommend to readers ages 10 to 14. In fact, I think it would make a wonderful birthday or Christmas gift. So now it's my absolute pleasure to hand over to Megan herself to tell us more.
I've never heard my name said so many times. Thank you, Anne. You're so kind. I'm going to attempt to put this in here. Yes, it is. Okay, just to say, there's another seat in here, okay? There's a seat over here. There's a seat, if you want to come and get a seat, Maris. Yeah, if you want to get a seat. Anyone who wants to get a seat. Yeah, there's three over here. Yeah, and children, you can sit on the floor if that's okay, on the carpet. Is that all right? You don't want to? It's okay if you want to stay there. Okay, I'll say no more about that. I want to stay at the door. Okay, so thank you so much. I'll start with Anne. Thank you so much, Anne. Can we all learn from Penny? Yeah, I was going to say how we met, so I won't do that. But it was in a house very like this, in freezing cold in February. And we were put into stables that had been changed into rooms. I had a trough in my room. Yeah, and wet towels. It was damp, but never mind. It was wonderful, it really was. And I met Anne, so it was totally worth it. And she's talking about envy of being in this book, you know, again, in the Children's Book Ireland. Well, I am envious of Anne's ability to describe setting. Yes, and to weave in historical fact and not make it look like, you know, here's the information. She just weaves it beautifully into the story. So I'm learning from you, Anne. Thank you. And thank you all for coming. You're so kind to come and to celebrate a story. It's just amazing that we do that, you know, and I'm very, very grateful. Yeah, I'm very grateful to have the story, to have the character, to have been given her. Well, I kind of half stole her, actually, from Ina Blyton. She was the most hated girl in the Mellery Towers series, for anyone who knows that series. But then she kind of turned into herself with me. I transported her to Ireland. Her name is Gwendolyn Mary Lacey when she's in Mellery Towers. And she cries all the time, and particularly when her mother drops her off at the start of the year, and all the other girls laugh and pretend to cry, you know. And then I thought, well, why is she crying, and why is her mother crying? And so I wanted to explore the story. So yeah, I'm grateful, Ina Blyton, if you're listening. Thank you. Yeah, so I will move on to my next card. So Tom O'Reilly isn't here, but he is the manager of Ardgillan Castle, and he is a writer, and he so kindly, you know, allowed us all to be here to enjoy this celebration of a story. And there is a writing group that meets here every Saturday morning, I think from 10 to 12. So yeah, and he actually is the person who told me about the publisher who published this book. So I'm super grateful to Tom, and 3 cookies have been saved for him in a special box, and they've been delivered to his office, and he says he doesn't mind if they're slightly stale. So he's going to get them tomorrow. I'm sure they'll be perfectly fresh because Christine baked them this morning. Thank you so much, Christine. I was going to thank you later, but now I'm on topic. Yeah, so thank you. Then Fingal Arts Office are my next people to thank, and I don't know if Sarah O'Neill is here yet, the Arts Officer. If you are, let me know. Maybe not. But I wanted to thank Fingal Arts Office because they have supported me to write this book for 2 years. Now they funded me, but it's also just the validation to think that, you know, that they had an external assessor look at the idea, go, yeah, that's worth funding. It's just so encouraging, and I just can't tell you how much it means to me. And then the Arts Council as well, they funded me with an Agility Award. They do different awards, and it's funny how failure can help you. The book that I wrote first, that was that we had the launch here last time in 2019. I wrote another book after that, and it got turned down. Can you believe it? It got turned down by the publisher. And they said, Megan, yeah, exactly, boo. But they said, Megan, your plot's all over the place. Like, it's a mixture of James Bond and I don't know what else. And I got over it, and then I wrote to the Arts Council, you know, you apply, and I said, listen, I need help with plot. So it's fantastic, and they funded me to work on plot. So actually that publisher did me a favour. You know, and I did learn an awful lot about plot. And I'm very glad a reviewer said the plot is intriguing. I can't tell you how much that means to me, because I really had to think and learn about plot. So that is that one. Now I'm going to keep this thank you short because Oisín doesn't like me talking about him. Oh, he's there. Thank you, Oisín. I'll say no more, but pretty much for absolutely everything. I can't say anything else, he won't be happy. There are so many people who helped to make this book happen, and not just the book, but the launch, and even what I'm wearing. I've talked about Tom O'Reilly, the manager, and then there's Aileen, the lovely lady outside, who is helping. Then there's Gillian, who has provided the sound system. Thank you, Gillian. Thank you so much. Andy, who has provided the stand for the mic. And I can see, I saw you a minute ago. You're there. You're Andy, thank you. Because when I'm reading, I don't have to, hold the mic. So I really appreciate it. And Kenny's not here, but he gives the mic. The Scary's News, thank you so much. You're here to take photos. I'm just, it's lovely to have you here. Brambles did the tea and coffee, and my glasses broke yesterday. Would you believe it? Of course. And who should provide them? A lovely pair of green glasses to match my dress. But my friend Tony at the back, she goes, Megan, I've got glasses and they're green. So thank you, and even the earrings have been posted from Kildare, if you wouldn't believe it, from my friend Michelle, who couldn't make it, but I feel she's here spiritually in my ears. So that's fantastic. Now we come to the readers. A writer can't get a book written without readers. Speaking of which, Nicola, would you like a chair up here? Yeah, she's one of my very, very precious readers. So she totally deserves a seat. Readers, like Anne said, readers are very precious. You need people who aren't going to go, you need people who are going to go, well, maybe you could work on this bit, and I really liked what you did with whatever, and you it starts off with, I really liked, and you're kind of going, yeah, come, let's get to the meat of the sandwich here, and then they'll tell you, maybe you could do this, but it was really good, at the other side. So it can't be done without readers, because as a writer yourself, you just can't see it. You can't see what's missing. So I have a list of names here. I have at the top of my list Baveen McAnally Masterson, and I know she's here. There she is. So kind, one of my writing students, who I have to say I did an excellent job. When I got her edits, I was like, wow, I taught her well. And she was so the painstakingly kindness with each thing that this doesn't quite make sense, Megan. And I go, this makes no sense, baby. So thank you. Lani O'Hanlon, she's not here, but she read a very early draft. Those people are so good to read it when it's really quite a mess. And Joanne Boyle, and Denise, I know you are here, very early draft as well, thank you. And Niamh Mulvey and Martina, Martina, there, she's at the door. She used to be my neighbour, but she's gone south side. Yes, but she has come back today, so thank you so much. And she really helped me not make a big boo-boo. And I won't tell you what it is because I'll ruin the plot, but she said, Megan, fix this. And I did. So thank you, Martina. And Regina, I don't know if Regina's here, she was another reader, Regina de Berka. And Nicola Garrett Elvison. I mean, the painstaking care, that you took, and your time. So thank you. And I really do need that help, particularly with, well, I don't know what it is with me and commas, but I'm like someone who puts too much salt in. I throw the commas in, and and then the character as well. My character was coming across as a little bit too young. I didn't know that. You just can't see it. And my family, thank you. Thank you for reading my book and not telling me anything you didn't like. That was the request. I'd had a particularly bruising rejection. I don't think I had my birthday party around there. I was like, no, I can't. And then I said, please read it and tell me only what you like. So thank you very much for doing that. I really needed it. There's a couple of more, Sophia Sorrick, Alice Matthews, Orla Matthews. They were students as well, because you know, when you get a rejection from the publisher, and for the writers in the room, be ready, you know. You need to kind of hold true, and what they say isn't always right, you know, so that's why you need to check. So I needed to check with a few readers, is this for the right age group? Have I got it right? You know what I mean? So, and just on this is, in case I forget to thank anyone, you know who you are. There are so many people have enabled this book to happen, and I needed to put that line in because, you know, in case I have forgotten anybody. Would anyone again like to sit on the floor or come up here? Just to say, no, you're fine, okay. So now I'm going to get into the juicy bit of the story, and Gwen. Yeah, I love Gwen. She has been such a gift to me. I started to write her in 2021, so that's four years ago, I think. Yeah. I think I'd looked at her before, but in 2021, it was seriously when I began. I was in the Tyrone Guthrie Centre, a house like this for artists. I call it the convalescent home for artists. You just go and you're fed, and it's fabulous, and you have a beautiful room, you know. And I remember sitting in the room, and I just felt spirits in the room with me, and I had the idea for this story, and I felt even the spirits of people like who have died from my family. I just felt them, and they were kind of going, yeah, I just felt I was given the nod, and I started it then, and yeah, Gwen is she's not true. She's a complex character. And I like her because she's really not perfect, and she helps me love that part of myself, which we all have, of course. You know, that doesn't get things right. Yeah, so I'm just very grateful to have her there. I can't read what that says. Yeah, oh yeah, I know what it says. It says, I loved spending time with her. So I'd often say to Oisín, I'm going off to spend time with Gwen. Oh, and I'd just go into my room and I'd spend time with Gwen. And so she got me through the years when my dad wasn't well, and my dad died, and she was still with me. And then actually I was able to write the rest of the book after that. You know, she was a companion. And I think creativity, well, probably for all of us, but certainly for me, it's that thing I can go to where I forget everything else, you know, and I can just be comforted. And I get that when I'm looking at other people's art as well. I'm looking at paintings, or I'm reading someone else's book. It's like, okay, you know, the world is wonderful and it can be difficult, but then we can go somewhere else and we can just hide out, you know. And I know you know that, because otherwise you wouldn't be here, you know. You know that, you get that. And then just the process of writing her, you know, when I was small, when I was very young and I was reading novels, I used to think, gosh, it's magic. Like, how do they just do it? It's like, it's just a magic trick. Who does that? I couldn't understand how a human being could do it. I now know. So it's a hard slog. It really is a hard slog. Yeah, and then plotting, and then there's magic. There is magic. But for me, and I think for many writers, it takes a while for the magic to arrive. It kind of, I was in that Tyrone Guthrie Centre again 2 years later, and I had done 3/4 of the novel. I'd done the hard slog, I got to know the characters, and then suddenly it just rushed out of my body. You know, I was like, it's so wonderful when it happens, and I just couldn't stop writing, and I knew I had no idea what was coming or how it was going to end, but it kind of revealed itself. And the same happened with the previous novel, and that's the utter joy. But for me anyway, it takes a while to get there. You know, it's kind of like you have to climb a mountain to see the view. I needed to write 3/4 of the book to get that real beauty come through. And where I wrote her in the River Mill with Anne, while Anne and the others were all sitting, typing all day long. I don't know how they did it. I'd be like, I'm going for a swim, anyone want to come? You know, I could really see the difference between me and the other writers. Like, I do not sit there all day. I have to be up and about. And I also went to the top of a mountain in Italy on my own. And I thought I was going with other writers and artists, but no, there was one other illustrator from Denmark, and she loved being on her own. And you know, I like being on my own, but I need people too, and I was like this little puppy dog, and kind of like, you know, could I see you maybe once a week, you know? And then In Italy, of course, I don't have Italian, and we did have these beautiful conversations with our eyes, but you know, you can only go so far. So I got a lot of writing done there, actually, so that was great. And yeah, the place, Anne talked about the monastic settlement, so the inspiration for that is Glendalough. We spent our summers there as children, and I always felt, and still do feel, particularly if you go to the monastic village very early in the morning, you know, 7 o'clock, I just feel with all the prayer that happened there, something has happened, and there's, you know, the veil is thin there between this world and the next. So I couldn't set a novel in Glendalough with all the tourists, and you know, so I brought a fictional place. Anyway, I will now read from the book if you can handle that. I'll just read it and then we'll be done. Okay. So this is when things start to go a bit strange in the school. Gwen has been there for maybe a month. She's trying to settle in. And yeah. October came and Gwen still didn't know her timetable. Hanuni told her what books to carry and where the next class was. She seemed to know as much as the teachers. She offered to help Gwen in prep, but Gwen was so tired by the end of the day, she couldn't listen to another word. Every week she rang Dad, but he had little news. Mum is making progress. He had no idea when she was getting out of hospital. Gwen battled on with classwork, homework, and swimming lessons, until one day something very strange happened. It was early in the morning, and she was brushing her teeth in the washroom, when a blind on the window rolled up with a snap. Gwen jumped around, toothbrush still in her mouth. That was odd. She hadn't touched the blind, and nobody else was there. She rinsed out her mouth and was reaching for a towel when something in the mirror caught her eye. A leaf floating outside the window. Gwen stared at the rust-coloured beech leaf. It moved from side to side and almost appeared to be waving. She peered out of the window. There was no beech tree nearby. Where had it come from? Hello, Gwen said to the leaf, then stopped. If anyone heard her talking to a leaf, they'd say she'd gone mad. But there was something about it. She reached out a hand. The leaf fluttered, more energetically up and down, as well as side to side. Was it telling her something? Just then the door opened and Amina walked in. Gwen turned away from the window, hastily grabbed her wash bag and retreated to the dorm. It was pancake day, and latecomers to breakfast weren't guaranteed one. Gwen loved pancakes. She would forget about the silly leaf incident. She managed to do this successfully until later that day, when she and Bella were taking their evening walk in the woods. She was enjoying the silence when some leaves lifted off the ground at her feet. Gwen stared in amazement as they began to swirl around her. It was as if she were standing inside a snow globe, made of yellow, orange and copper leaves. Gwen held her arms out. Come on, Bella, she danced about. Twirl with me. But Bella barked nervously. It's all right, Gwen shushed her. It's only the wind. The leaves continued to swirl, and after a while, Gwen realised it couldn't be the wind. With Bella between her legs, shaking and growling, Gwen studied the scene more carefully. It was not a windy day. It was perfectly still. The leaves were rising from the ground, not drifting down from branches. Suddenly she remembered the single floating leaf outside the washroom. What are you? She whispered. The leaves spun faster. Gwen gasped and clutched Bella in her arms. Some grit got into her eye and she blinked furiously. Half blind, she batted the leaves away and staggered along the track. It was late and the moon had risen above the trees. Mum's many warnings about being out alone at night came flooding back. With Bella under her arm, she stumbled out of the woods into the lakeshore in front of the school. She let Bella down, but the little dog froze and the hair stood up on her back. What is it? Gwen noticed a movement in the reeds. Bella lunged towards them, barking. Gwen stepped closer. It's all right. Maybe it was a couple of swans. Gwen studied the moving reeds. They were swaying to and fro all by themselves. There was nothing there. No duck, no swan, It was that thing again. She knew it. "Stop it," Gwen roared. The reeds stilled for a moment but started swaying again, more vigorously. They leaned this way and that, flattening and rising, as if a creature was moving amongst them. Gwen's hair lifted up on either side of her head. "Ah!" she screamed, tugging it down. "What's happening? What do you want?" "Listen," came a haunting voice. "I want you to listen." Gwen shrieked, "Leave me alone," and dashed up the path, running as fast as she could towards the school. Bursting through the front door with Bella at her heels, she encountered Matron in the entrance hall. "Out!" Matron roared at Bella. "There's something out there." Gwen hurried to the kitchen, ignoring Matron's shouts to put that dog outside. Mrs. Matthews was filling the dishwasher. "You can't bring Bella in here, you know that." "Please, I'm scared." Gwen shivered uncontrollably. "What's the matter?" Gwen sank into an armchair, rubbing her arms. "I'm scared." "You're in shock. I'll make you a hot chocolate." While Mrs. Matthews heated milk on the stove, Gwen couldn't stop shaking. "Drink that." Mrs. Matthews handed her a steaming mug of hot chocolate. In silence, Gwen drank. Every sip brought safety and comfort. Slowly she came into the room. Her feet were on the kitchen tiles. She was sitting in the kitchen armchair with cushions at her back. That thing was outside. She was safe. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to sign books. So if you would like to sign a book, maybe I'm going to go into the dining room. There's this lovely big table, and I would absolutely love to do that. And if you haven't had a cup of tea or a cookie, hopefully there's some left, So thanks so much, everybody.